and weight gain despite being matched to the unprocessed diet for presented calories, sugar, fat, sodium, fiber, and micronutrients. So there was a great difference found in this group of people. So ultra processed diet led to increased body weight over time, and unprocessed led to progressive weight loss, and body fat increased with the ultra processed diet and decreased with the unprocessed diet. So links to diabetes, we all know here. There is an inflammatory effects, nutrient imbalance, and glycemic control and insulin resistance, and high GI causes blood sugar spikes. So this is a known fact. And then prevalence of diabetes, obesity, and diabesity in India has been studied by our own group. So there is a 11.4% diabetes today, and obesity in the general population is 6.6%, and diabesity is about 8.1%. And the ultra processed foods has a major role to play in this. Health risks of consuming ultra processed to tabulate in one slide. It's obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancer, depression, and digestive issues. So gut microbiome, just now we heard that gut microbiome, there are trillions of them supporting digestion and immunity, metabolism, and preventing of inflammation. So ultra processed foods, industrial products high in sugar, salt, unhealthy foods, additives, and low in fiber, all of them, they are linked to increased risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, gut disorders, and low grade inflammation. So better choices are diverse plant foods, fermented foods, and minimal processing. This was a slide I took from the status of Dr. Manohar KN, which I was just looking through my slides and came across this. We are getting closer to burger house, cola house, pizza house, and sweet shop, and chips, and all these ultra processing foods. So India is growing health crisis. India's growing health crisis. The rise of junk food culture loaded with sugar, salt, and unhealthy fats is fueling the epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes across India. And from burger joints to sweet shops, our traditional diets are being replaced by processed fast foods, especially in urban and semi-urban areas. The result, blood sugar levels soaring and childhood obesity is increasing, and higher risk of insulin resistance, PCOD, heart disease, and more. So choose fresh, local, fiber-rich foods, reduce sugar, cola, chips, and refined carbs, move more, sit less, educate, and act. This should be our slogan. So diabesity, this also is known to all of us. Public health actions are very necessary in India. Propose cigarette-style warning labels on high-fat sugar snacks. CBSE schools introducing oils, and the campaigns for healthier school canteens. Emphasis on replacing UPF with minimally processed and nutrient-rich foods should be done by us. So WHO definitely recommended diet with the minimally processed foods. What can we do? Choose group 1 foods, group 2 foods should be minimally used, group 3 foods, limit the use of processed foods, and avoid totally the ultra processed foods, especially for our children. So coming to the conclusion, taking action against ultra processed foods is most important. Choose whole foods. Advocate for change, support policies that limit UPFs, and promote healthy eating, and educate yourself, spread the awareness of, share knowledge with family and community, especially around us. So it's not only for ourselves, to all those who come across as we are health givers. Thank you.
Thank the organizing committee for having given me this opportunity, and to talk about a very difficult topic, the biology of muscle and its relevance to diabetes mellitus. I will take you through a little bit of introduction. I'll touch upon the role of muscle on glucose, and mainly dwell on the impact of diabetes on muscle, which includes sarcopenia also, but with a little specific reference. And we'll go to the current treatment strategies, what are the treatments in the pipeline, and end up with a summary. Skeletal muscle, as you know, is a main target of insulin, and the largest organ that uses blood glucose for about 80% of the entire glucose. Skeletal muscle accounts for about 40% of the body weight, and it's a very dynamic and a plastic organ or tissue in the human body. The link between the skeletal muscle and diabetes have always been bidirectional, and a combination of muscle atrophy as well as muscle dysfunction is termed as sarcopenia. Now, what is the role of muscle on glucose? The insulin sits on the insulin receptor, and this activates the glucose transporters or GLUT4 from the intracytoplasmic pool to go up to the extremity or the periphery, pick up the glucose and take it in. This is metabolized by the mitochondria to produce ATP, and once ATP-ADP ratio is high, it automatically depolarizes a cell, leading on to calcium influx, and finally calcium acts on the actin and myosin filaments, producing the contraction. This is not the end of the story. The other part of it is that from the blood glucose, the muscle has taken up almost the entire 80% of glucose, thereby achieving euglycemia. The impact of diabetes on muscle could be listed as follows: role of insulin on skeletal muscle in euglycemia, the missing action of insulin on muscle in diabetes with insulin resistance on mind, and muscle mass, strength and function, inflammation and oxidative stress. Even muscle fiber alteration has to do a lot of things, impaired skeletal muscle regeneration and mitochondrial dysfunction, and the last one is satellite cell impairment. In diabetes, what happens? There is a lower muscle mass, abnormal lipid deposition, slow to fast fiber type transition, and fiber gets atrophied, and lower capillarization, not much of microvascular supply to the particular muscle fiber, and impaired mitochondrial respiration, morphology, as well as increased RAS production. All these things lead to a lower skeletal muscle strength, so exercise intolerance happens, and this leads to increased mortality. Now, what is the role of insulin on skeletal muscle in euglycemia? As I have already alluded to, the glycogen formation happens in the particular muscle cell with the aid of the molecule, insulin molecule sitting on the receptor, opening the glut and entering of glucose, which is converted into glycogen by glycogen synthase. This glycogen is stored but is used only for the benefit of the muscle, not for the whole body. So even in an episode of hypoglycemia, this does not come for rescue. Maybe it is almost like my cash in my hand, which I would not probably spend for you or for the other person. I will spend it only for myself. The same way the muscle has it only for its own use. The second thing is lipid accretion, wherein you have the LPL or the hormone sensitive lipase opens up the amino acid, gets into it, the fatty acid gets into it, and is utilized for the welfare of that particular cell in cell wall building, the repair process, or hormone synthesis if necessary. And lastly, the protein aspect of it, it has a insulin-like growth factor receptor, wherein the insulin molecule also has and sits on that and opens a channel for amino acids which enter into the cell and forms a protein. When insulin is adequately present, this happens well. At the same time, there is no protein breakdown. When insulin deficiency, it causes a reduction in the protein formation, at the same time a reduction in the or increase in the protein breakdown. What are the missing actions of insulin on muscle in DM with insulin resistance in hand? Insulin resistance and impaired glucose uptake causes mitochondrial dysfunction, ectopic fat accumulation, and increased intracellular lipid deposition, muscle inflammation with protein degradation in muscle tissue, oxidative stress and formation of RAS, and formation of toxic advanced glycation end product or AGE. And insulin resistance also downregulates muscle contractile protein synthesis, at the same time upregulates the protein degradation, and also blood translocation is not there, so even the muscle is starved of glucose. This is just to show you that there is an insulin resistance here, hyperinsulinemia, and not effectively handling this particular issue. So less of GLUT4 reaches the periphery, less of glucose entry, so fatty acid is being metabolized, lot of reactive species is produced, and also this particular palmitate also produces a reduction in the glut formation. So ultimately the cell is starved with more of ROS. What does the muscle mass and strength tell you? type 2 diabetes on one hand and skeletal muscle atrophy on the other hand. Both of things are a vicious cycle. The crux being the insulin resistance. So when you develop type 2 diabetes, this causes hyperglycemia, and this hyperglycemia acting on the skeletal muscle atrophy produces further breakdown of the protein and also reduction in the production of protein, muscle protein, and thereby that also again causes diabetes. So this goes on and on and on. What about the inflammation and oxidative stress? Diabetes itself is an inflammation, and denervation or any such thing mediates through NF-kappa B as well as the UPS, and finally produces a increased proteolysis. On the other hand, oxidative stress, which is in the cytoplasm, also enters into the nucleus with FOXO pathway and produces proteolysis. So proteolysis happens, muscle atrophy is achieved. Moreover, oxidative stress also causes a decreased protein synthesis by mTOR pathway. Ultimately, these inflammations cause muscle atrophy. What has this muscle fiber composition to do with this? Normally, the type 1 fiber is a dominating area, whereas in diabetes, it becomes a transition from 1 to 2, as well as non-specified fibers are also there. These fibers are responsible for the poor effect as far as the muscle regeneration is concerned. So this is a picture or cross-section of the muscle fiber. The left half of the muscle fiber is a healthy fiber, and the right half is a type 2 diabetes fiber. When you look at this, you see here the common factor or denominator is glycogen, which is almost felt equally on both sides. But to achieve this amount of glycogen in a diabetic patient, there is a lot of glycogen synthase are required. Cytosolic GPB, GRB also is important. GDE as well as GP are important. So all these things try their best effort to improve the production of glycogen and stores it. So what little glucose enters into the cell is stored as a glycogen, wherein the glucose is not even used for metabolizing or energizing that cell. So thereby our patients come with fatigue as well as tiredness. All these things probably could be due to this particular lack of glucose for its utilization. Of course, there is some amount of storage as glycogen. Now what about the mitochondrial dysfunction? The skeletal muscle atrophy itself causes mitochondrial damage. So when this damage occurs, what happens is there is a reduction in the ATP formation, there is a reduction in bioenergetics, biogenesis of mitochondria, as well as increased oxidative stress and ROS activity. And also the normal pattern of mitochondria's life is little altered by becoming a mitochondria which does not get cleared off when it is diseased. That is called what is called autophagy or mitophagy,